Welcome back to That and This with Pastor Kris. It's Wednesday at 2 o'clock your time. It's only been 30 seconds for us, but doggone, we live in a vacuum. It's a pastoral vacuum. So
it's digital
things
world
now echo through eternity, I've been told.
True.
All right, so we're continuing the discussion on your message. And I didn't say this the first time, but you did a great message, Kris. That was a great message. It was well delivered. I know you don't need this kind of stuff, but there was nothing distracting about the message at all, and that's hard to say.
Except the mac and cheese.
No, the mac and cheese. I actually ordered a case of it from Amazon. I'm stoked. I can't wait for it to get here. Yeah, and I'm looking for the St. Patrick's Day mac and cheese, also a nice hefty green color.
Better not. Oh, Kraft! If you're
Can't wait.
Now, please.
Good old Kraft. I love it. How dare you say chemicals too? That's that made me the man I am today.
Read the package. It's like a paragraph.
I'm just kidding. Who cares? So at any rate, and if you weren't in the service,
thank you, though, Kelly.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you weren't in the service, you need to watch it so you can see the mac and cheese she's talking about. Apparently, they make a Valentine's mac and cheese. It's pink, but
still time to buy it for your Valentine's.
That would be stupid. Like if they made it pink, it tastes like cheese. Okay, but if it really tastes like bubble gum, that's ridiculous.
That's what I heard, and I'm like, that's just
I have to try it because of that. I want to try it to see.
I want somebody out there, please buy this stuff and
I'm buying it.
But we need to have evidence of you eating it.
I'll do it at the office, and we can go live with it, and I'll tell everybody.
That would be pretty awesome.
Honest. I mean, and I have no animus towards Kraft, so you will get a straight up. I love Kraft. I love you as a company. I appreciate everything you do. Anyway, but what I was saying was you were able to really drive home this point by exegeting pieces of the passage, right? And when I say exegete, I mean that you were excavating the meaning from the passage. So you didn't write a message about love and then go to the passage and pick out verses that say love in it and say, see, you went to the scripture and let the scripture breathe out. And then that's what you kind of captured and were able to flow with. That's what made it so pleasing. I mean, it was just a great, well-delivered message, and I loved it. But I really appreciated the fact that you went through the portions of scripture. Why did you break up the portions the way you did? How specifically sort of were you doing it? Because you read the majority of the chapter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So first, as I kind of I usually do a once through of the scripture. And of course, looking at, what comes before the 1 Corinthians 12, what comes after, and trying to get a framework of what is the big story here. What is this passage communicating? Yes, it's about love, but in a gist, what is that? And, and the main part was the whole idea of love being not self-centered and not all-knowing and not assuming thing and that whole thing, which is very anti-self.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it really, as I was thinking and praying about it, the idea came that, love bends,
Yeah, I like that.
Because bending requires effort. Bending is uncomfortable. Bending is not about you. Bending has this, almost bowing posture where you're honoring. Right. And really, I felt like that's what that whole piece, that whole pericope in the scripture was really leading to.
Use one of my words. There you go.
Big words. Yeah. But so and then as I was going through, I'm like, well, what specifically? So love bends. So what are the kind of elements of that? And the first part really stood out to me, that Paul once again is finishing 1 Corinthians 12 with the idea of the body, about not being about you. It's not about you. It's not about you. And then he goes into this piece at the beginning of 13 at that chapter where he's saying focus on others. So bending towards others.
So it's interesting because this is the weirdest thing. We're going to talk about most of this in the last session, but I do want to touch on it right now. Love, and here's one thing you said, which I think needs to be said. And I like the illustration. It made me laugh because I've used this something similar to this before. You said Greek was like a 64 box of crayons versus English is a 12 piece crayon set, right? We use love to mean 100 things and it's all in
Right. I
context.
love Kraft macaroni and cheese. No.
Yeah. Good. See,
I
just
love
got
you,
that. We have that
Kelly.
recorded. We have it recorded. We're going to take that excerpt and play
No,
it on
please don't.
Facebook.
I love you, Kelly.
Thanks. Okay.
I love you
And I'm just as good for you as Kraft mac and cheese. But that is so true, and it's so important here because Paul is talking to people who, like us, probably don't understand love very well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, Kris, that I think that I got out of listening to you, and it's not new to me, but it needs to be refreshed in us pretty regularly, is, we need to understand the differences in love and how we throw that word around and be quite careful when we're talking about scripture and things like that. And like what when God says love, here's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. And so isn't it hard? Like, because you're tackling clearly the biggest subject. I mean, if we go to James, what does James say about love, right? God is love, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's like you're tackling the biggest subject matter possible. How do you extrapolate like where to go with that? I mean, that's hard because you're talking to people at all stages of life that have experienced love in so many different ways, and some that poured love out and had acid returned.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the hard part. Like, so how does this scripture sort of speak to that in your mind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think one of the misleading things is, and most of us know this, but do we really know, is that love is not an emotion. We usually describe it that way, that I love chocolate, I love this, I love that type thing, as an emotive process. Whereas in scripture, that's not the case at all. Like, Paul is not talking about an emotive feeling or reaction that way. He's talking about an action. And I think agape is very close to, this is in some of my research and reading, it's very close to charity. But these days we tend to define charity as like, oh, I'm giving to the poor type thing. But it's a self-sacrifice, it's commitment, and it's faithfulness. So that's what I would say is a better kind of descriptive of what this type of love is, rather than okay, my heart is going like this type love, or something touched me,
right,
something made me feel a certain way. It's really not that at all. And I think that it's hard for us to comprehend that because we're so surrounded by a culture and advertisements and everything and movies, and that drives towards that emotive force. And that's why it's
not experiential.
It's not experiential, right? And that's one of the things that, once again, that Paul is connecting to, because these people are worshiping in a way that's totally driven on their experience and then feeling something. And he's saying, no, love is an action. Love is this idea of self-giving. It's commitment, it's faithfulness. It's not how you feel at the moment, and whether it's like, yeah, I'm good, or, ooh, now it's not good and I need to therefore do something else to make it good again. He's like, that's just this roller coaster that goes up and down. Agape is unconditional.
Yeah, there's countless sermons and messages that have been done on the different forms of love, right? I mean, I don't know if you can graduate from pastor school without at least writing one and delivering one someplace. It's like you can't say that you're a pastor until you've done the Greek words, and then which is funny to me. But so this is not self-aggrandizing, but I've been writing this book called Dandelion Faith, right? I've talked about it a few times. Mm-hmm. And the funny part is the impetus of that. And when you said it today, as you described it today, like, it made my heart swell because I'm doing the same thing. The concept of the dandelion is exactly agape. It is the belief and the desire to spread something, right? To blow these seeds out, not knowing where they're going to go, how they're going to root, whether they're going to root, whether they're going to ever become anything, but loving and adoring the process, right, of giving and just letting it go and loving something and releasing it. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but that's really the thing, is like God loved in such a way. And I got that as you were talking today, that Paul was kind of describing this God that we're worshiping as loving us so much that it's more than anything, any gift that he gives, or loving in such a way, knowing that he's going to get hurt in the process. Right. And it's like, it's interesting because the dandelion, of course, God doesn't die, but the dandelion itself, that's the last act, is to blow into the future. And you quoted that horrid show Hamilton, and I'm just kidding with you, but that's, and even we discussed it. It's like planting an orchard that, in several generations, your great grandchildren are going to walk through and pick fruit from and eat.
Right.
And then they might say, grandpa or grandma planted this orchard.
Right. They might. It's not guaranteed. And you won't know it anyway.
And you don't have that guarantee, but how beautiful is it when they do? And I think God loved us so much that he blew those dandelion seeds. He planted these orchards in our history, and have watched them bloom in some of us over the time. Right. And the picture of that it tickled me. You know what I mean? Like, I love that because it's so unfamiliar to us. As you said, we're all about reciprocity. You don't love me anymore, thus I don't love you anymore. You stop loving me, thus I'm going to walk away. Right. And I think I really, we're going to talk about that in the third session. So it's going to be more intense, I think. But when you brought up divorce, you brought up all those really touchy issues where people, and this is something you said, Kris, like, I want you to talk more about that now, actually, because I'm fired up about it. But you said, we always think about the now, but we don't think about what's going to come from this, right? So as you were writing that, you were talking about divorce, you were talking about the effects of it, the long-term effects, and that our past is carried into our future, if you will. What you consider to be past is still your present. Right. Can you, man, will you expand on that just as we close this session out? Like, take the rest of the time. Tell me about that. That's a huge thing, man.
Oh yeah, it is. And I don't think we think about it enough. I know I don't. Often I go about my daily life and make decisions or react to things, and I don't think about how that's setting me up for the future. But it is. It's kind of like, I should have said this and I didn't, but the whole pothole thing, a pothole never happens overnight.
Right.
It's a day by day, chunk by chunk, piece by piece, expansion by expansion. And that's the same with us. So most of the time we don't see this kind of day and night, like, I did this, therefore in 5 years, this is going to happen. Any smoker knows that, any smoker say has suffered from cancer knows that it wasn't like they smoked 100 packs of cigarettes in one day. It was over the course of 20 years, 30 years, whatever, that day by day by day that it led up there. But it's not just that type of thing. It's our mindset. It's how we respond to others. It's how I use people. Do I hop from relationship to relationship to relationship that I'm seeking something? And ultimately that destroys the most fulfilling relationship that I find with someone.
Yeah.
Article that I read that I alluded to, I didn't really unpack in the message, was even just about like physical intimacy, and how the number of people that you've been physically intimate with will affect your marriage. So say that one day you tie the knot, you're together, there will be effects from all those people that you slept with. Sure. And especially if your partner also brings that in. Holy cow. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that it compounds, and we don't think about that. It's kind of like, okay, well, I'm dating this person, or I'm this person, oh, they must be the one, and this is what's expected, and I kind of do it. And then I don't think about that person down the, is this necessarily the person I'm going to be with the rest of my life, but how will this affect that eventually?
Right. I used to tell the students, it's like Horcruxes from Harry Potter. Like every time you're with somebody, you split your soul a little bit and leave a little piece of yourself. And so when you finally find the person that you want to give everything to, you can't, because you've already given away splinters of yourself that other people carry, right? Sorry
Right.
to
And
interrupt you.
also,
Just like it was interesting.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also, you know, and I have a lot of divorced friends, and sometimes, you know, they enter into new relationships thinking like, well, I'm kind of spoiled goods and it doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. You know, yes, it does matter. What you're doing now is going to affect what happens in your future, and specifically your relationships.
Wow.
You know, I don't know anybody that treated their parents terribly that now has a wonderful relationship with their spouse and their kids.
Right.
I don't know anybody that was a jerk to their parents when they were growing up or even through adulthood. And then all of a sudden now this has this amazing, it affects you and you become that effector.
Wow. That's strong. Well, we're going to end that on that session, but you guys need to dwell on that a little bit, because that's like, you can't, that is a solid truth. And I think that it's something we should be talking about more often. And instead of, we focus on like, how can you make yourself better, instead of how can you mine your past, and how can you, that's why we believe in this redeeming, reconciling God.
Right.
Because God's like, I can make you new, but he's not, I don't think it's a process he's going to do to you every day. Like, oh, you screwed up, let's make you new again. Let's remake you again. I mean, in our minds, these things keep moving forward with us, like you said. Even if God reconciles us, we still have to carry the burden of that, which is a consequence that's not averted. I think that's
and it's kind of like, do you want to add more brokenness into enough tartness in relationship? Like, I mean, we know in the best case of, the best scenarios, relationships are hard, and if they're sweet tarts.
That's a truth. That's a truth.
But do you want to do you want to take what you're doing right now and even complicate that further? And like I said, I'm totally guilty of this, because, I can get into that mindset, whether with friends and even family, and where I become this, almost like negative force, where I'm thinking, oh, there she goes again. And I'm like training myself to destroy that relationship.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's so easy, isn't it? We seem almost like we're bent towards that, because we always want to find the issue so that we don't have to fully invest ourselves in those people.
Right.
Because when we do, ultimately, we feel like it's going to burn us. So it's like, well, let me find reasons not to. Mm-hmm. And then, all right, we're going to save this last piece for the, because you said, what if we gave God relationship advice that we gave other people?
Yeah, you and I have talked about this.
What if God treated our relationship with him like we treat other people's, can you imagine? All right, everybody, thanks for watching that and this with Pastor Kris and with Kelly here. And we're going to see you again on Friday. Please join us on Friday. We're going to talk about things like, what is love really? What are we talking about here? What happens if you're in a situation that's so horrid? Is Pastor Kris telling us that you got to stay no matter what, because that's what love would do? Or is there, stuff like that, real life stuff. So come see us. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. We love you guys. We'll see you on Friday. Deuces.
And Kelly will be wearing the same hat.
Yeah, you know how hard it is. I have to make sure my facial hair is exactly the same from session to session, same shirt and everything. The same shirt's easy because I only wear the same shirt every day anyhow. All right, see you guys on Friday at 2:00.